Is this okay news when it comes to Hedera? Well, I'd like to think so, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And I'll talk about the price of HBAR very soon, but let's talk about this real quick because very recently it was announced how Dovu official is bringing $1 billion in carbon credit assets to Hedera. Isn't that kind of impressive? Because a lot of people like to tell me, oh, Hedera is not really doing anything because HBAR's had a major pullback. It's now around 30 times approximately lower than $3. Well, yeah, I'm aware of that, but at least they're doing something. This is on top of, by the way, what they've already done in terms of the McLaren Racing partnership, right? We also take a look at, for instance, very recently, FedEx, right? That joined the Hedera Council. So really in 2026, I think they're off to a pretty okay start, in my opinion. So this is why I think it's pretty okay news in a sense where, you know what, if someone, or should I say, if something like Dovu decides to bring $1 billion in carbon credit assets to Hedera, yeah, I think it's pretty okay news at the end of the day. However, besides that point, of course, this type of stuff really isn't going to do much to the charts when it comes to HBAR if there really is no change in sentiment. However, the longer things can stay this way, I'm not saying it's going to just stay stagnant like that, but maybe if it just kind of hovers around these ranges, I'm a very happy individual because I'm looking to dollar cost average. Now, granted, of course, HBAR's had a big pullback along with a bunch of other projects out there, but the reason why I'm still in this space, the reason why I haven't exited, and the reason why I'm still dollar cost averaging is because I want to bring that average down. I feel like if, let's say, something is low, it's kind of like arguably one of the worst times for me to exit because what happens? I ride it all the way down and I realize all of it by leaving. Yeah, no, sir. I am not going to be doing that personally because I like to be able to dollar cost average at as low as a point possible, preferably. Doesn't always happen, but preferably. And I like to do that for the projects that I'm a fan of, in which case I am a fan of Hedera, so yeah, I don't want to give up. Hedera, by the way, if we take a look at the governing council, there's something like Google, right? And we take a look at also something like Mondelez. Mondelez, one of their brands is Oreo, by the way, so if we take a look at Hedera, I feel like a lot of enterprises out there kind of realize somewhat the significance of it, right? Because if they didn't, I don't know if this type of stuff would even be hypothetically possible. Besides that point, though, HBAR, yeah, sure, $3 seems like a very far ways away. We're around 30 times lower than that, by the way. However, actually at $3, we're taking a look at a market cap at that point of around 128 billion, and that's if we consider the current circulating supply. However, the thing for me is, even though some people like to tell me, oh, that sounds very ridiculous, but what happens? That market cap right there is just slightly a little bit more than what BNB reached at one point in terms of market cap back in 2021. Like BNB, granted, it achieved a new all-time high during this cycle, but I'm saying in terms of market cap, specifically in 2021 at that point, or should I say at one point, it was above 100 billion, like around 106 billion or something like that. So 128 billion, like that's not too far off that. And the thing is, a lot of people are saying, oh, BNB, is going to do this during this cycle, is going to do that. So what? HBAR suddenly can't come somewhat close to what BNB reached years ago back in 2021 at one point? I mean, I don't know if this sounds so ridiculous to me because Hedera, we have to take into consideration, it's a little bit different, I think, than something like the BNB chain. More specifically, if I take a look at Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't even utilize traditional blockchain technology. It uses a directed acyclic graph. So just by default right there, that's already a differentiating factor when it comes to Hedera. So when a lot of people like to say, oh, this blockchain's better than this one, oh, this project's better than this one, that could be argued because it's like comparing a bicycle to a bicycle, right? But once you compare a bicycle to a motorcycle, that's a completely different ecosystem, I feel like, sometimes arguably for me. So I feel like when it comes to something like this, it's just a little bit unique because by default, a lot of enterprises may think, oh, traditional blockchain technology and all this. But once they take a look at Hedera Hashgraph, I think that completely sometimes opens a different perspective because a directed acyclic graph is just a little bit different when it compared to a lot of other projects out there that, we take a look at it, still use traditional blockchain technology. Hedera Hashgraph, it's just a little bit different. That's my perspective. And you know, a lot of people like to say sure, but no one's really going to care about something like that. Okay, maybe in the retail side of things, but for a developer or let's say for like an enterprise who's looking for like the best of the best efficiency, sometimes they may take a look at something like a directed acyclic graph, right? Because if we take a look at Hedera hash graph, sure, people like to say it's going to be useless because people are just going to go instead to other places, but a directed acyclic graph by nature, supposedly, it does have several advantages, like for instance, slightly enhanced scalability when compared to a lot of other projects out there that do use traditional blockchain technology. Also, we take a look at energy consumption. We also take a look at sometimes it's a little bit faster as well, amongst other benefits. But I'm just saying, because if we take a look at it, what do people usually care about when it comes to a project? They want it fast, they want it scalable, and they want something that's basically not going to consume a lot of energy in some cases, especially for enterprises. So I feel like Hedera Hashgraph, it kind of ticks those boxes, but sometimes it's just a little bit better than some of its competitors, in my opinion. So sure, these slight advantages on paper may not seem like a big deal, but for an enterprise, sometimes they're going to care a lot. So I think that when it comes to Hedera, I don't think it's an obsolete type of project. I still like it. I still think it has a use case. Sure, it doesn't have the best adoption out there, but if we take a look at Hedera for a place like AI projects and all this, right? I feel like arguably, if the developer cares about scalability, speed, and also if the developer sometimes cares more about energy consumption, which, if we take a look at it, a lot of AI companies out there do use a lot of energy. So sometimes energy consumption could be focused on in arguably some cases. So that's where I think Hedera begins to set itself apart from a lot of the other competition out there. So I think that arguably, again, sure, it may not have the best adoption as of right now, but we'll wait and see later because sometimes things take time. It's not like it's just going to instantaneously have the best adoption of all time. It might take some time, but I'll be waiting. That's it. And I do like this because during an altcoin season, people usually care about the narrative, right? They care about the story, they care about the vibe. Sometimes the adoption is a afterthought, right? Sometimes they don't really care about it. But then when it comes to the story, the narrative, I do like it here because it's just interesting, it's different, and sometimes that's what people do look for during an altcoin season. So Hedera for me ticks all the boxes in terms of the fundamentals. Now all I have to do is wait, so I'll wait. The missing ingredient is a hypothetical altcoin season. The fundamentals are there, arguably, hypothetically, in my perspective. So I'll be waiting. If that's the only thing I have to do is wait, because I've already dollar cost averaged consistently once a month. I've already been in HBAR for over 2 years at this point. I've already done all that. The only thing I know now that I can do is wait because I can't control the market. I can't control Hedera. I can only control myself, and I'm going to be waiting. I don't have to, but I'm voluntarily choosing to do so because, first of all, I'm curious, and also on top of that, I've seen the market sometimes recover again. So, yeah, I just don't want to leave. Still dollar cost averaging, and that's pretty much about it. So I'm still a fan when it comes to Hedera. Haven't given up. However, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll see y'all on the next video. I'm out. Peace. Bye.